Okay, we have a number of CUPE Awards that are given out at convention. And the first one I'm going to talk about, delegates, please take your seats, if you can, is the Grace Hartman Award. Delegates know I now have the honor of presenting the Grace Hartman Award. CUPE established this award to recognize feminist leaders in our own union. Grace Hartman was the first woman to be elected a national union leader in North America when she was elected National Secretary Treasurer in 1967. Hear, hear. Over 16 years in office as a national officer, she led CUPE through critical strikes, social justice strikes, and she became known here in Canada and internationally. You can find out more about Sister Grace Hartman and other feminist leaders from our history by visiting the Equality booth in the Village. I'm honored to announce this year's Grace Hartman Award winner goes to another trailblazer, a longtime activist from CUPE Local 4400, Toronto School Board workers, Sister Katie McGovern. Hear, hear. Katie has led groundbreaking labor and community campaigns supporting other equality activists and movement building at every opportunity. She cut her teeth in the peace movement with the United Farm Workers in the late 1960s, and she brought that militancy north to Canada. Here she continued global justice solidarity work, helping mobilize communities around housing, education, childcare, violence against women, racism, and many other issues. As an education worker, Katie became a CUPE activist, eventually helping to serve in a leadership role with our 12,000-strong CUPE Local 4400 in Toronto. Katie has skillfully juggled roles as a spokesperson, a negotiator, a facilitator, a lobbyist, a community developer, a mentor, among many other positions. Katie is unable to join us this week here in Toronto, but we have a short video, and then a sister of Katie's from 4400 will come up here to officially receive the award. Technicians, please look at the screens.
What's difficult is to get the political will and the funding to follow. I'm Katie McGovern, and my official title is Corresponding and Recording Secretary, but what that means in real life is that I'm responsible for organizing meetings of our executive and the general membership. I also am responsible for getting the table officers together once a week and keep track of where we are in terms of duties and responsibilities and projects that are ongoing. In addition to that, I also do some political work. I work with an organization called Campaign for Public Education, and that's the group that says give students what they need to succeed. And I was one of the founding members, and I've been working with them ever since, so that's been a pretty long-term commitment. There are two things actually that I remember being really key to what I was doing, and one of them was the death of Martin Luther King in Wisconsin at that time, going to a small Catholic college. And when he died, it was so upsetting, and a number of us went to Milwaukee for a march. And I remember being involved in the march, and I learned a lot of the songs that I didn't know before, like Ain't Nobody Gonna Turn Me Around and all the old classics. But then when I came home and saw the way it was reported on the TV and in the newspapers, it was significantly different than what I experienced. And it was similar in a way to how I found out about what was going on in the Vietnam War. I was reading about it in the Chicago Tribune, which is a very right-wing newspaper, and seeing it on television, and I couldn't make heads or tails. It just made no sense to me. And asked the teacher about it, and he said, write a paper about it. I thought he was so I did, and I realized, and I was shocked. It's amazing how things interrelate, one things lead to another. It's like learning to do various skills where things that you learn in one area carry through to another area, but also when you're learning about what's going on in the world. When you get your feet wet and you start to say, wait a minute, there's two whole different sets of what's going on here, what's really going on, and how do you know who to believe, and how do you figure out what's really going on? Those were the things that really, I think, got me with my eyes wide open. Good Lord, there's so much that can be done. I mean, I think that the easiest thing to do is figure out what's bothering you the most and then try to figure out how to change it. You can do it as somebody who has to start from scratch and develop a small group of people who may expand and struggle, or you figure out what's going on and what organizations are involved and what speaks to you. But I think that we all have to take responsibility for what's going on in the world and do our best to try to change it.
Sisters and brothers, to receive the award in the name of Katie McGovern, a great trade unionist, let me call forward our Diversity Vice President and member of CUPE Local 4400, Yolanda McLean. Yolanda?
Good morning, sisters and brothers. Good morning, Katie. I know you're watching this morning. You've texted me 44 times since 8 o'clock our time, asking, is it up yet? But I'm glad you're now in the right time zone, and I'm going to read what you've asked me to read to the delegates. Sisters and brothers, this is the first convention that I've missed since the early 1980s, when we had to strategize and fight just to find out the agenda. Then we'd go through some pretty big hoops, and we got no t-shirts in those days for first-time speakers or when we participated, and oh, do I miss you all. Thanks to my local Toronto education workers for the nomination and to the National Women's Committee for their tremendous honor. I'm happy to be a grassroots activist. We in the trade union movement are unique leaders wherever we are. We can share the skills, forge small p political links, and develop personal relationships of trust so needed for this important work. I remember Grace Hartman and the women in CUPE and other unions who struggled to be heard and get their problems addressed. I remember her husband, Joe, and in the same manner, I now want to recognize the other part of my heart for over 40 years, my dear Roberto, who is definitely here in spirit. As workers in Canada and globally, we have come through a long and difficult period. The term 1% was brilliant in its clarity, though not scientific. Accumulation of wealth and power has destroyed millions of our sisters and brothers and hurt our planet. We have no choice but to struggle. We need to get our friends and our allies and our colleagues and our organizations and parties and communities together here, now, in this country, on this continent, and on this planet. LEAP is the vehicle right now, and it needs to be nurtured, especially for the trade unionists. Less ego, more listening, more understanding. Find the links and the commonalities. If you cannot help, then get the hell out of the way. Somebody else will do it. Some of them are my words, okay? We have the same work no matter if it is under the Conservatives, the Liberals, NDP, Greens, either in majority or the minority. Just the tactics change. There are no saviors and there's no magic bullets. Only us here together. We will keep pushing for the agenda, all of us, whether the government du jour wants it or not. Take joy in your struggle, and thank you again so much for this award. Thank you, my sisters and brothers.
Thank you, delegates, and thank you so much, Yolanda, and congratulations, Katie.